Hi, everyone. I'm Shaheen from The Content Mix, and I'm excited to be here with Leandro Sánchez de Medina, a journalist turned global social media manager based in Madrid, and he's currently working for renewable energy company ACCIONA. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So for those who don't know, can you tell us a bit about what ACCIONA actually does? I actually live in Spain, so I've definitely heard of the company, but it's kind of behind the scenes. So can you tell us about it?
Yeah, ACCIONA is a renewable energy and infrastructure company that it's currently focused on tackling climate change in Spain, but in other countries around the world. So they're basically creating awareness about the necessity of tackling global warming, and they provide solutions to beat it.
Awesome. And so how long have you been working there?
5 years now. 5 years, yeah.
Cool. So, and your background is actually in journalism, right? So how did you end up going from journalism? What were you doing before, and how did you end up in your current role?
Yeah, I was covering sports news here in Spain. I love journalism, but especially the sports like soccer, football. I love it. But I started to feel interested in social media, since social media channels were evolving very rapidly throughout the years. I really felt interested on social media. So I decided to change my career towards a more marketing career or social media or even brands. So I'm here after 5 years.
I see. I mean, it's a logical evolution, right? From, media to social media. It's very related.
Yeah. Kind of. And the industry has evolved dramatically in the last 7 years, and many journalists are required to fill positions in the marketing industry. And I think, in my humble opinion, that they are doing great. They are evolved great to marketing positions.
Yeah, because you mentioned that you didn't have any previous experience in marketing, only in journalism. But I think it seems that recruiters really value that journalism experience.
Yeah,
right?
I think they value the way we can craft more creative captions for post, or include different approaches to talk about the values of a brand. That I think that's the main value that journalists have in the marketing industry. The way they can talk not positively, but they talk about the brand they work for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of have like a natural knack for putting things into, like, relating with people, because that's what our whole job was as journalists.
Right? Totally agree.
Yeah, and I think sometimes for people who have a really analytical marketing background, that part is like the difficult part for them. And for people with the journalism background, that's like the easy part. And that the more analytical part is the difficult part, for me at least. I'm also from journalism.
For me too. But I honestly think that the most analytical part, you can learn it. The most creative part, I'm not sure of it. You can practice it. You should read a lot to really be more creative in crafting captions for your posts. But it's more difficult to be creative than to be analytical when you are in the marketing industry.
Yeah, that's true. Those like softer skills take a lot of time to develop, whereas the hard skills are something that's more specific and learnable. So, what's been your challenge in adapting to this new kind of role? Were there things you had never done before that you had to figure out?
Definitely the paid media strategy, because I didn't know anything about how to set up a paid media strategy to make the most of the organic post we publish. But with the years, I've been learning a lot about how to maximize results and how to decide what content is likely to get better results when boosted, when promoted. And that's one of the things that I love the most when I'm my job, like deciding what content performs well in an organic way and boost it for weeks. For example, one of the strategies we have in ACCIONA is that if a content is performing well organically, it has for example, in Facebook has over 200 organic reactions. We decide to promote it for 1 week. if it performs well, we continue promoting it during 2 weeks, during 3, during 4 to maximize results. And that's something that we try to do not only on Facebook, but also on LinkedIn or on Twitter and on Instagram. And in our case, it works really, really well so far.
Yeah, super interesting. So like, who are the kinds of people you're trying to reach through social media?
It depends on the platform, because on Instagram, we have a very young community that is very advocate for climate action, is very activist. So we shift the way we communicate toward a more activist way of doing it, like more with shorter captions, with more engaging videos, etc. But on LinkedIn, we are communicating towards our directors, vice presidents. It's a different audience. So we tailor the message to a more business purpose way of caption, So we talk about the contracts that the company has won recently on LinkedIn, but we don't do that on Instagram. It always depends on the platform and the features that every platform has.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're dealing with like different stakeholders that are very specific and maybe in different parts of the world. And where do you guys operate? Actually, I didn't ask that.
we operate mainly in North America, Australia, Mexico, and Chile, and also Ecuador and Colombia, and obviously Spain. But it also depends on the sector. In the construction sector, ACCIONA is growing in Europe too, in Norway, in the UK too. But in renewable energy, they are developing projects mainly in Australia, the US, and Chile.
Mm-hmm. I see. So social media allows you to be really targeted in terms of like geography.
Yeah, I look after ACCIONA's global channels, but I also coordinate my coworkers in the countries where we operate to set up the local social platforms such as Twitter and Facebook. So it's a huge structure of people working in the marketing, in digital marketing in ACCIONA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So one thing I was curious to ask you about is about, you said social media monitoring is part of your role, right? And like, what is, I know that, I guess that's something that larger companies do more than smaller ones. And from your position in a large corporation, maybe you can talk about what that actually means.
Yeah, every Monday, I track the results that the organic post have achieved across all the channels we have. And I create a kind of list of engagement, or it depends on the KPI we are interested in. It depends on the campaign we launch, but mostly engagement and interactions and click to website. And we create a list, and we decide this post it's likely to perform well if we promote it on LinkedIn. This post has gotten over 1,000 organic likes on Instagram. We should promote it. We should promote it at least for for a week. And if it performs better, we could add more budget to it and maximize results, as I said before. So we weekly do that. We create reports, weekly reports, to see what content performs better.
So I like for a lot of like B2C or even B2B brands, like they would be kind of measuring performance based on conversions. But in your case, like you're dealing with like huge industrial projects, and that can take probably years to finalize. So how can you tell, like, if like you can tell that like a lot of people are engaging with it, but how do you know that it's actually like having a positive impact for the business?
That's a good question, because we are a B2B company, but our main goal, our main KPI is to reach brand awareness. So how to do that? I know how to do that, but the KPI we analyze and we see, okay, we are succeeding in our purpose. It's mainly engagement, because we are creating engagement in a certain post. we are increasing the reach. So we are creating that brand awareness, but also bonds with the people that follow us. We like creating that loyalty, the brand loyalty. We achieve that by getting comments. For example, in the post, when we get positive comments, we realize that we are creating that loyalty with the brand. So brand loyalty, brand awareness is the way we measure our success in a B2B company. We cannot measure an ROI in terms of, okay, I posted that post on Facebook, I've just have had a new project in South Africa. No, that obviously doesn't work that way, but
right, yeah. So it's a long-term strategy.
Long-term, definitely.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And I wanted to mention, I actually worked in the energy industry between like 2010 and 2014 on and off. But yeah, at that time, actually a lot of companies, I was really paying attention to this sector, and a lot of companies weren't even on social media. So it seems like things have really changed. Yeah, I mean, in the case of ACCIONA, like how long have you had a social media presence, and how important is it now compared to before?
We've been over eight years now, I think. I've been 5 years, but they opened social platforms way before I came, and they have been doing really great in terms of results. They have been always in the top 3 of between the competitors in Spain, and it's becoming hard because many utilities in Spain are realizing how important our social media is for creating that bonds with the customers, the providers, with the stakeholders around the world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. At least in my experience, there was definitely like some hesitation to get involved in social media because, yeah, you can't really control like what people are saying about you. But at the same time, if you don't have the platform, then they're going to be saying it somewhere else, and you have even less control, right? Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you can tell us about like what platforms are most important for you, and kind of like what your approach has been, or what kinds of content has worked best.
Currently, we are very focused on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Obviously, Facebook and Twitter are important. Facebook, especially for getting interactions, is a really good platform. But to create meaningful ways of connections with our community, Instagram and LinkedIn are really the best platforms so far for us. And especially, it depends on the platform, but on Instagram, for example, we usually create like very impactful pictures of our projects. Especially, people love wind turbines. People love how the process, the engineering process of a certain infrastructure, especially in time-lapse videos. They don't have to be very professional. They could be like amateur-style videos with less than 1 minute video on Instagram, and they perform great because people love seeing how things are done and are made. So that kind of content performs really, really well on Instagram. On LinkedIn, it's more about talking that we have won in contracts in the US, for example. We have won recently a contract for building a wind farm in Australia, and people value that because they say, "Wow, they are winning contracts. They are a good company to work for." Mm-hmm. So it depends always the audience that every platform has.
Yeah, so it's important to have like a dedicated strategy for each of your channels.
Definitely, you can share the same content, for example, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I don't think that on Instagram, honestly, but you have to tailor it to every platform.
Okay, so the same base content, but like make it relatable or relevant for that particular audience.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Let's see. I was curious, have you been very impacted by this like pandemic situation we're in right now?
Definitely. We had to stop our paid posts for a while to decide what to do. I think many companies did that.
Yeah.
And then we turned the way we communicated. We used to communicate about how our infrastructure helps to make a better planet. Okay, that's the claim. But then we turned to say how our people are helping to slow down the effects of this pandemic in Spain, especially, but in other countries, because ACCIONA also have workers that are frontline workers, especially in the healthcare system, or they in the transportation system. They were key in helping people to overcome this pandemic, especially in March and April, and even May in Spain. So we turned the way we communicated. We said thank you to all of them on social media, and we weekly updated the situation of how we helped in delivering medicine to the hospitals, etc. So ACCIONA not only works in the renewable energy sector and infrastructure, but also in delivering basic services such as electricity, water treatment, and helping like with the transportation of goods, food, etc.
I see. So and all of those things were disrupted or impacted during this time. So
yeah.
Wow. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You had to be really.
It's been the greatest change I've been through this in these 5 years in terms of communicating about our brand. And we are still communicating about this because this pandemic is still hitting us, not only in Spain, like in every country, but we try to back to a normal. There is no normal anymore, but normal in terms of talking about our projects, but always having in mind the people, having in mind that there is a person behind those projects that make them possible. So that's possibly the biggest change we have had in years.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's super interesting to hear how you're dealing with it. So, well, I wanted to go to the recommendations part of the interview. It's a strange transition, but yeah, I mean, one thing I always try to touch on in these conversations is just resources and recommendations for other marketers, so we can all learn from each other. So I wanted to ask you about. Well, first of all, you had told me earlier that you listen to podcasts. So I was curious to hear what your podcast recommendations are.
Yeah. In the lockdown, I started to listen to more podcasts than before. And there is a very, very good podcast called Social Media Examiner podcast. It's the socialmediaexaminer.com page. It's a very famous page in the US. They have a huge community. Not only in the US, but across the world. And they have a very useful podcast in which mostly, I think weekly, they interview people and that are experts in certain platform. For example, how do you make the most of your organic post on Facebook? How do you create engaging stories for B2C, for a B2B company, etc. So they talk about anything related social media, and it's pretty useful. I think it's useful for the beginners and for seniors. So I truly recommend it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check it out and get some inspiration for this podcast. So cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm super interested to learn from others as well. So well, any other podcasts?
Kind of similar, like the way they talk with an expert, although we are talking about in general, my experience in general, but it's kind of the similar, the format.
Well, it's focusing like more on tactics probably.
Probably, or they focus on only one platform or tactic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super cool. Super interesting. Yeah. I'm of course trying to listen to more podcasts to learn more about podcasting, because you might not know this is a relatively new podcast. So we just started a month and a half ago, or 2 months. Yeah. But anyway, so do you recommend any a favorite app at the moment?
I'm starting to look for new apps to create compelling stories for Instagram. And there is one that is called Mojo, like in Spanish is Mojo.
Mojo. Yeah.
Mojo, like emoji, but not emoji. Mojo.
Yeah.
That allows you to create dynamic stories, like video stories, and you get pictures and they appear in the story. It's pretty cool, and it looks very professional. Actually, we are using it on ACCIONA, so we are starting to use it because it's free. Most of the images that you can see, the templates, but it's really professional, definitely.
Yeah, very cool. There's definitely like a lot of new apps coming in that space. Like, of course, all social media managers know Canva, I think, but like, and now Canva is like adding some features for these kinds of things. But yeah, new ones keep popping up, and it's interesting to see like what new tools you can use for making actually creating content.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Awesome. And then, well, any other resources that you recommend?
For example, there are a couple of websites in Spanish, reasonwhy.com and marketingforecommerce.net. And there is one in English that you all probably know, that is We Are Social Media, wersm.com. It's like Verge, like these kind of websites that help you stay up to date on marketing trends. But apart from that, I really think that it's useful not only to read about marketing, but to get into literature, to read like more. One thing that I love is poetry, like writing and reading it. And I think it's very useful for me to read poetry, to create new ways of creating captions for the post. I think when you read poetry, you think wider. You find new ways, new approaches to talk about certain topics. So I really recommend people, this may sound weird, to read poetry, not only marketing books or how to make the most of your post, etc. Read poetry, read novels, but especially like poetry books, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, to keep like creatively sharp, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And like actually think outside of the box and get like new ideas, not just like
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great tip. Well, so we've reached the end of our interview. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was our real pleasure.
Yeah, it was awesome talking to you about your experience. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening in. For more perspectives on the content marketing industry in Europe, check out thecontentmix.com. And we'll be releasing a lot more interviews like this one every weekday. So keep tuning in. See you next time. Bye-bye.